what's your take on the workshop, and why did you decide to come here?
Okay, like I said, for me, women, agriculture and youth are priority. So because this workshop was about agribusiness and the youth, certainly it became a priority for me. Yeah, that's why I'm here. And besides, I think I have something to share from my past. Having gone, first of all, I was also a youth one time, then having gone through being a banker, an agriculture banker, then a minister, then working with the Food and Agriculture Organization, which showed me what the rest of the world is going through. I think I have something to share.
Besides your capacity, you know, having been a minister, you already, after your retirement, you started your own farming business.
Yes.
So could you elaborate on that?
I started my own farming business, but what I remember is it is a small farm because I'm farming, this is urban farming where we stay. So I told my husband that I was going to grow vegetables for sale. Then he's like, but the land is not good. I'm like, no, the neighbor has cattle. I'll take their urine and cow dung and fertilize my land. Then my husband is like, are you sure? What if the neighbor sells the cows? I'm like, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. I'll grow these vegetables and we shall eat them. Fortunately, I stuck to my guns. He wanted to see my project idea, my appraisal, my proposal. I said, I'm not going to do all that. I'm just going to dig in. So I grew these vegetables, and fortunately, there was this team of young people who were using funds to buy these vegetables. They bought my vegetables, and to my embarrassment, I could not fulfill their demand, which was a good problem to have. Yeah.
Amazing. So you have first-hand experiences both on the policy side and on the production side.
Exactly.
And then there's another thing you started here to, as an the Agripreneurship Alliance or the Agribusiness Alliance.
Yes.
Here in, could you elaborate on what it entails?
Yeah, after retiring, I came back and I was looking around. I was actually teaching public speaking and organizing talks. Now, whenever we organized a talk about agriculture, agribusiness, the rooms were full. When we talked about ICT, we talked about social responsibility and whatever, the room was half full. So that told me something, that people really had thirst for these talks. So that evolved into formal agri-talks. But in order to come to our agri-talks, you have to pay in order to get in. In Uganda these days, people are paid in order to go to workshops and seminars. In our case, people pay. And it is interesting, people travel miles and miles to come to these talks. They get there, we charge them, and we deliver.
So why do you think they pay? What do they get from this?
There is a need to, because we are emphasizing value chains. So while some people may be, for example, producing, like we have got the avocado value chain, there are a number of people who are producing avocados. But in Uganda, as you will see when you travel, you will have 1 tree, 2 trees, 10 trees. That's not enough for an exporter. But if we come together and that exporter knows that we are from the same village and together we have got maybe 50 trees, we can have a contract so that we have got a sure buyer at all times who can actually call us and say, are the avocados ready? I'm sending so and so, and we also discuss the price before he arrives. So when people saw that because we do it value chain by value chain, the moment it is your value chain, they are supposed to arrive at 10, they arrive at 9. Yes, and we are supposed to finish at 12, but we leave the room for them to talk. They will talk sometimes until 3 o'clock because they have that thirst. I may be your neighbor, but you are not growing what I'm growing. So if I meet you all and we are all doing avocado and maybe I'm the processor, that's a fantastic meet. Secondly, for the youth, for example, many of them, like some are still at university, others have just graduated. What happens is we allow them to come in without paying and just listen and meet these people. And it is interesting how quickly they can sort of pick up and say, I can do that. Yeah.
So you start first by finding the sort of the business, the buyers, and then you organize and invite the farmers, or this come at the same time, you bring them all together. What is the format? How do you do this?
So, like I said, inside there is no standard format. Sometimes we find the buyers, but sometimes we find the producers first. Like we have got a pumpkin value chain. We first found the producers because they were all complaining that while they were producing so many pumpkins, there was no market. We were like, you must be joking. When we got the market, pumpkins are not cheap. So we brought these producers, and then we went to the market and brought a few buyers. And we told them that these people are complaining that we are not buying. They're like, we don't know them. I'm like, oh, now we know each other. Now it has that particular value chain of pumpkin has worked so well that it has created a good challenge where I think Denmark would like to import 1 ton of roasted pumpkin seeds every month. That's a lot of seeds.
Wow.
Yes.
So how do you get fuel? How's funded? Is it self-funded?
It is
from
self-funded.
the farmers?
No. It is self-funded mostly from us, because the way the farmers come in is when they come for those meetings. So normally when we collect that money, fortunately we have got space, so we don't pay for the space. When we collect that money from them, we are able to give them a tea break, because the meetings always start at 10 and they finish at 12:30 because we can't afford lunch. How is it funded? Not by, like, my husband owns a building, he's in real estate, so he lent me the space.
For free.
Yes, and I don't get a salary.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of an NGO.
Yes, it is an NGO.
Okay.
It is a registered NGO.
I wanted to ask you, you have a very rich background in agriculture and other. I looked at your background. You also serve the FAO and so on. So from all this experience, also you serve the government. What are really the constraints for agribusiness here in Uganda and maybe in general in Africa?
Before I talk about Uganda, I'll make a general comment. In quite a number of cases, African governments have not yet appreciated the importance and the potential of agriculture. Because, like I said, if we prioritized agriculture and made sure, for example, that every kid who goes through school has some appreciation of agriculture, and when, for example, you go to university and you are studying agriculture, you do the practicals, because now a lot of students are being trained on theory. Then 3, when it comes to starting, while I said it is okay to jump in, you can jump in if you are starting something small. But when and if you need credit here is just a killer. Because having been a banker, the most paying project in Uganda can give you an internal rate of return of 12%. 12. But most of the banks are lending at 20%. So how do you make ends meet? Then 2, they normally require collateral, which in most cases is not easy. To make matters worse, in Uganda, land is owned by the men, but agriculture is done by the women. So with that type of so what can government do in order to change that? 1, find a way of getting the women to own the resources they are using. That is 1. 2, set up a bank or an institution which is accessible to everybody, so that these people can go there and borrow at an affordable cost. You know, you are hearing about the youth fund and the women fund. The conditions.
Should we move out a little?
Or maybe I could talk to them. Let me see. Let me see if I can.
So you were talking about this gender and women,
Yes.
right? And also the financing,
Yes.
right? The bank. Are you
Yes.
thinking of microfinancing? Is that or a different scheme?
For me, whether it is microfinancing or financing, which is general, meaning it takes care of the small, the medium, and the large, that would be fine. Because when I was a banker, I was working with the Uganda Government Bank, and I was funding agriculture projects. So we funded the small, the big, and the medium, and each of them got what they wanted. Some of them may have 3 cows, and all they want is water. So you give them the water and they are good to go. Then others wanted to buy a tractor that is in Uganda is considered bigger. So you fund the tractor and they use the tractor as collateral, but the interest rate is manageable. We used to have a different rate. Now all that has gone out of the window. When we talk to...
But how could you... Oh, sorry.
When we talk to the people who are doing the policy, what they say is, for them, they lend you money. What you are going to use it for, they don't know and they don't care. That is why the interest rate is the same for everybody.
So that's a big constraint. You think the finance,
Yeah,
the price of money.
Yes, the price of money. But the second one is the information. I was telling you about these people who trek all the way to our meetings. In quite a number of cases, even basic information is just not available. So information, cost of credit, and then access to resources. for me, I'm definitely sure if those three were resolved, there would be a difference.
How about the university? What do you think the university can do?
To a certain extent, the university is doing what it is set up to do, and I'm sure the reason I'm here is partly because we are in partnership with the agribusiness class, because there is the ongoing class and those who have graduated. They are the ones we work with in order to, I think, give them like a soft landing, show them the real world. So, for example, those who graduated last year are interning at our offices, and whenever I have a chance, I go out there with them, and quite often I throw them in the deep end. I tell them, you either think and talk or you sink and die. And they love it. Yeah, they love it.
And a question now, this workshop was about education,
Yes.
And north-south linkages, and possibilities also for business setup, north-south linkages and creating more equitable businesses. What are your thoughts on that, and how can we facilitate what we envision is a very good route forward? How can that be facilitated, through what channels?
In my view, that is a fantastic idea. Basically because two things. Quite a number of African youths think that up north things are fantastic. You know, everything is smooth. When you live there, it is like you pick dollars from the trees and whatever. So I like it when they get together, get to know each other as people, so that they can know and accept what the truth is. And in fact, even this possibility of the Swedish youth coming here, then the Ugandan youth going to Sweden, so that they can see exactly what they have been told, which they have never seen. That is fantastic. Secondly, the youth from the north have seen how things really work. That the youths from here have got the potential and the resources. So if you can bring that experience to this potential, I can just see an explosion. Yeah.
So since we have you here, there's a very age-old question about small farms and African agriculture. How do you see it? Can you marry the? I mean, can the two remain? Can agriculture grow and small farms still be there?
Having experienced it, my answer is yes. Was one other thing which I didn't share there is that when I worked for the bank for 13 years. Now when I joined politics, the salary was smaller. So I went to the bank, got my retirement benefit and bought a cow. And I put it in my posh compound, minister's compound. And every day I sold milk to my neighbors. So just three
the Minister of Agriculture.
Yes, was selling.
That's wonderful.
And that milk paid for everything in my kitchen. So for me, I'm 100% sure that small farmers have got a lot of potential in Africa. Because first of all, when you promote a small farmer, let's say now I'm a grandmother. If you promoted my small farm near me, I can still be a good grandmother because I'll be working with my grandchildren. I'll be able to put food on the table, and there are those buyers who are ready to buy. What has been the undoing of the small farmer is that many of them are isolated and nobody knows about them. But once they are interlinked, it will just work.
Is there any message that you would like to send out to people, for organizations, for fostering education and North-South collaborations, and to make it happen? That's for us very important, of course.
In quite a number of African countries, we still blame our failures on our colonial masters. Now, let us assume that you are part of the so-called colonial masters. Now you are coming back to say, okay, how can we change this? In my view, that is fantastic. Education is the way to go because it will solve that issue of misinformation. Then it will also open doors. So I think this is a fantastic idea. And if it is carried forward so that you do not only do the education, but you can also co-fund these projects with the people in the South, I just can't see how it can fail.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
That's fantastic.
Thanks a lot. It's fantastic. Wow.